Welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. Today's explainer is called Practical, Add and Retrieve Files with IPFS Storage. You know, I'm genuinely excited you're here today because we're finally rolling up our sleeves for a real, hands-on digital lab experiment. In our last lesson together, we tackled the whole tricky business of identifying and resolving race conditions. Absolutely crucial stuff for building solid, decentralized apps, right? But today, we're taking those abstract concepts of decentralized architecture and making them totally tangible. We're going to practically add and retrieve files using IPFS storage. So grab your terminals because we're getting right to work.
But first, I want you to just stop and really think about this question for a second. How do you actually prove a file hasn't changed a single byte? I mean, in the traditional Web 2 world, we rely almost entirely on location and blind trust. You click a link, point to a server somewhere, and just cross your fingers, hoping the file on the other end is exactly what you expect. Or, worse, you get hit with that soul-crushing 404 not found error. We've all been there. But in Web 3, we replace that blind trust with absolute mathematical certainty through something called content addressing. And today, we're actually going to prove it.
Okay, let's dive straight into this. Here is our blueprint for today's experiment. First, 1. The apparatus. Second, 2. The procedure. Third, 3. The observation. And finally, 4. The conclusion.
Now, before we even touch the tools, we absolutely have to understand our core component, the content identifier, or CID. It's essentially a deterministic, perfectly verifiable fingerprint of a file's exact bytes. I like to think of a CID like a ridiculously pedantic club bouncer. In Web 2, the bouncer just glances at your plastic ID card, right? Just checks your file name and location. But this Web 3 CID bouncer? No way. He completely ignores your ID card and instead scans your exact molecular structure. Literally, if you change even a single atom, you're a completely different person to him and you get a completely different CID.
Section 1. The apparatus. Setting up the lab environment.
You really don't need much to run this blueprint, honestly. Just 3 things. First, terminal access. That could be Mac OS, Linux, or Windows subsystem for Linux, whatever you prefer. Second, just a really simple text file. Let's call it example.txt, and maybe just type a basic sentence inside it. And finally, you need an IPFS operating mode. It's a super minimalist setup, but man, it is incredibly powerful.
So let's look at those 2 IPFS operating modes you can choose from. Your first option is the local IPFS daemon. This one uses the IPFS command line interface and a local repository right there on your machine. Your second option is the HTTP API. This one just uses simple curl commands to talk to a remote IPFS storage gateway. Honestly, you can choose either path for this lab. And just as a quick side note, mastering both of these setups is going to give you a massive advantage in other Forge College courses as you dive deeper into decentralized infrastructure, for sure.
Section 2. The procedure. Executing the workflow.
Now, what's really interesting here is that this workflow is the literal heartbeat of our experiment. It's just a simple, elegant 3-step loop. Step 1, we add the file to the network, which produces our CID. Step 2, we retrieve that exact file back from the network using the cat command. And step 3, we verify the file's integrity using a checksum. Add, retrieve, verify. Trust me, once you get this little loop in your fingers, it just becomes second nature. Okay, so let's break down step 1, the add commands, for both of those modes we talked about. If you're running the local daemon, it's wonderfully concise. You just run IPFS add-q example.txt/sid.txt. That -q flag, it just tells the system to only spit out the hash, and the arrow writes that hash directly into a brand new file called sid.txt. Simple, right? Now, if you're using the HTTP API instead, you're sending a curl request to the endpoint and you're piping the JSON response through a tool like JQ to extract just the hash, and then saving that to sid.txt. No matter which mode you use, the result is exactly the same. And the output of that command, that's your CID. Seriously, if you open up that cid.txt file right now, you're going to see a completely unique string. If you're using version 0, it's going to start with QM. If you're using the newer version 1, it'll start with Baffy. This string is literally the mathematically verifiable fingerprint of your specific example.txt file. You just created a permanent identifier. How cool is that?
Okay, now we take that brand new CID and actually use it to pull the content back down from the network.
For the local daemon, the command is IPFS-cat, followed by the CID we just saved, and then we pipe that output into another new file, let's call it retrieve.txt. For the HTTP API, we use a curl GET request targeting the gateway URL with our CID and save the output. Now really notice what we're doing here. We are not asking a central server for a file path. Instead, we're practically shouting a mathematical hash into the void and asking the decentralized network to return the exact specific bytes that match it.
Section 3. The observation. Verifying byte-for-byte integrity.
All right, time to act like forensic scientists, dusting for digital fingerprints. We need to actually prove that our original example.txt is perfectly identical to the retrieved.txt we just pulled from IPFS. You've got a couple options here. You can use a tool like SHA-256-sum to generate hashes for both files and just compare them side by side. Or, and this is definitely my personal favorite, you can use the CMP command. This one silently compares the two files, literally byte for byte, and then echoes out a confirmation message if they are in fact identical.
And if you followed the drafting schematic correctly, when you hit enter, your terminal should echo back a glorious, incredibly satisfying match. That right there is the absolute climax of our experiment. Think about it. You didn't just download a file, you mathematically verified that the retrieved content maps exactly byte for byte to the original content you uploaded. There's no tampering, there's no corruption, and absolutely no relying on a server's empty promise.
This brings us to the core lesson of the whole explainer. The CID is deterministic. Try this. Go back to your original example.txt and add just one single extra space, or change a lowercase letter to an uppercase letter. Then run the add command again. I guarantee you will get a completely different CID. It won't just be off by a letter or two. The entire hash will look completely alien. It is hypersensitive by design, and that's exactly what makes it so secure.
Section 4. The conclusion, takeaways, and the road ahead.
So, let's summarize our concrete outcomes from the lab. First, CIDs are deterministic fingerprints. We just proved that with actual math. Second, successful retrieval requires your CID to resolve properly, either through a daemon or a gateway. And third, and guys, this is a huge one for all you engineers out there, always document your exact steps. Recording the CID and your command sequence provides total reproducibility. That is literally how you audit decentralized storage and prove to anyone anywhere that your content is completely unchanged.
Now, this sets the stage perfectly for what's coming up next in our decentralized storage track is the Filecoin protocol overview. Because, look, now that you've mastered verifying content mathematically in the short term, we really need to talk about how to persist that content long term.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. Now that you can verify content mathematically, how do you actually incentivize the network to store it forever? IPFS perfectly proves what the file is, but how do we ensure it stays online for good? Well, that is exactly where Filecoin comes in, and that's where the economics of Web3 get truly fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me in the lab today. To explore the answer to this question and to dive into a ton of other amazing Web3 topics, make sure you visit forge.college. Keep experimenting, keep verifying, and I'll see you in the next explainer.